I've listened to over 1,000 sales calls over the last 2.5 years. It averaged out to be about 10 sales calls per week. And what I've learned is success leaves clues. So today, what I'm going to be covering are the things that top 1% sales closers do that the other bottom 99% do not. So the first thing that top sales reps do is they actively listen. And so what a lot of people teach, and especially sales managers have a bad tendency to train their team on this, is they teach you should just read a script. And so what happens is you give your team a script, you say, hey, this is the script that you're going to be following, and your team comes off like a complete robot. So the seller, and I'll give you an extreme example of something that I've heard. Seller said, they ask, why are you looking to sell? Seller says, well, someone just passed away in my family. It was someone really close to me, and I just have a ton of bad memories here. And then in this person's script, this was an old script before they actually learned our process, they were taught to go into the condition. So what this rep did is they said, okay, got it. And walk me through, how old is the roof? What does the seller think? They tell you something, they open up, and then you immediately go into the condition of the home. They think you do not give a flying fuck about their situation, about what they're experiencing. And so what ends up happening is now the seller has no trust with you. They don't build any sort of rapport or any sort of connection. And the rest of the call, the only thing they're going to do is give you short surface level answers. Now, the top 1% of closers, they spend most of their time off script. They have a process that they follow, but most of the time, what they're doing is they're actively listening and they're asking questions about what the seller is saying. If the seller says, for example, well, this house just is a lot for me right now. They'll say, and it's a lot in what way though? Oh my gosh, I have so many repairs that I need to do. We are barely keeping up with the payment. How long has it actually been going on? They're listening and they're asking questions about the seller's situation. Now, number 2 is a little bit more subtle, and I'm going to explain how to do this. But top 1% closers are phenomenal at using verbal cues. Now, this ties in to active listening. And so verbal cues, when the seller is talking and they are explaining their situation, verbal cues are what you do to show the seller you're actively listening and naturally bridge from question to question. And so one of the most common questions I get from inexperienced reps is, what do I do if the seller says that's none of your business? And what that comes from is using the wrong tonality and usually using a complete lack of verbal cues. And so what I hear with brand new reps that have no sales training, or maybe they need a lot of help, is they'll do something like this. They'll say, okay, so walk me through. Do you live here? Is it a rental for you? The seller will say, yeah, I live here. And then you can hear them click, 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 typing. And they're going, okay, got it. Okay, you live here. Got it. And where are you headed next? And then they ask their next question. Now, the thing is, that doesn't sound like a natural conversation. Think about the last time you've had a conversation with your friend. You don't say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? They say, oh yeah, I think I'm going to go to the mall and probably go have dinner with my girlfriend. You don't say, oh, okay, got it. You're going to the mall and you're having dinner with your girlfriend. Where are you guys going to go? Your friend would look at you and be like, dude, what's wrong with you? Why do you sound so weird? And we do the same thing with our sellers, wondering, why are we getting that sort of response? And so verbal cues sound like this. Let's say you ask your friend, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, well, we're going to the mall. I think I'm going to go out to dinner with my girlfriend. Oh, really? You're going out to dinner with your girlfriend? Where are you guys going? And then when you're listening to someone is talking, especially a long-winded conversation, you're not just staying quiet, waiting till they finish and then saying, okay, got it. And then moving on to your next question. You're hitting them with verbal cues. Oh, really? Oh, well, that makes sense why you might want to do that. But walk me through. And then you're bridging to your next question. You're showing them that you're actively listening by using verbal cues. All of the top 1% closers, they do this. Now, if you're in person, it can be a little bit easier because you might lean in when the seller is saying something. You might be nodding your head as they're saying something that makes sense. On the phone, you can't do that. So you need to use these verbal cues. Really? Okay, right. You need to use these verbal cues to show them that you're listening. When you show them that you're actively listening, the seller is going to go far deeper. They are going to open up a lot more. So number 3, all of the top closers get emotional impact. A lot of sales scripts, they teach you that you need to learn about the seller's motivation. You need to ask about the motivation. You'll ask a question like, so why are you looking to sell? Tell me what you have going on with the property. The problem with that is then the seller tells you, I'm looking to sell because the house is too expensive. And then you go, okay, got it. That's your motivation. And you move forward. In the bottom 20% of closers, that's what they do. The top 1%, they go deeper and deeper until they get the seller to feel those problems. This is what we call an emotional impact. So if the seller says, oh, well, the house is getting a little bit too expensive. Help me understand, what do you mean by it's getting too expensive? Well, the insurance just jacked up the prices. It was $200 a month. Now it's $400 a month. Our income hasn't gone up. And so we're barely keeping up with the payments. How long has that been going on? Gosh, it's been going on for the last 6 months. And it seems like they're doubling it every single year. I'm getting the seller to talk about their pain points, but I don't just stop there. What I want to do is I want to get their emotional impact. And so after listening to 1,000+ sales calls, what I've noticed is on the calls that end up closing for the biggest assignments, the sellers aren't just talking about a problem. They are talking about feeling. They are using words like, gosh, it's stressful. It is painful. I am excited about getting to this next chapter of my life. They're using words that match their emotions. And there's a couple of ways we can get to that. One of my favorite ways of doing that is saying, man, I know if that were me and the insurance was bumping up my cost every single year, I'd be really stressed, but I can't even imagine what's that been like for you. That's one way to go about it. You can say, well, how's that actually impacted you guys though? How's that impacted your finances though? Getting them to talk about the thing that is causing them to want to change. Because when the seller feels their pain points, that's what's causing them to want to change. And not only that, it's also taking them away from that price-based thinking and into that result-based thinking. Okay, number 4 that all top closers do is they are absolute masters of reframes. If you don't know what a reframe is, to put it simply, a reframe is just you helping the seller fix a broken mindset. And so a lot of times our sellers have these mindset issues. And this could be anything from, hey, I'm miserable in this house, but I'm not going to sell until I get my price. It could be, I really want to be closer to my kids, but I think that if I wait another year, the prices are going to go up, right? These are like these broken mindsets. And the reason that I say they're broken mindsets is because what the seller's doing is they have this baseline quality of life, right? And they're saying, hey, I'm willing to settle for a lower quality of life just because of the money. Well, what does money actually do for us? Money gives us a better quality of life. It's a tool to give you a better quality of life. So the money is preventing them from getting the result that they're looking for. This is just one example of a reframe. If a seller is saying, yeah, you know what? I really hate this neighborhood. I'm not happy in this house at all. The home's in terrible condition, but you know what? I am just going to hold off until I get my price. This is where you could use a reframe like this. I would say something along the lines of, well, have you considered that you waiting and pushing this off until you get this magical number in your head might be the one thing that's causing you to feel all of that pain in your life, the one thing that's preventing you from being able to start this next chapter? And do you want to have to settle for that if you didn't have to, right? This is taking them from, hey, I'm only focused on the price to I am focused on the result. Now notice I went in order for a reason. You have to actively listen to understand their problems. You have to use these verbal cues so they will continue to open up. Then you need to get those emotional impacts, right? That emotional impact, what they are feeling. Once you do that, then you can help them fix that broken mindset because there's trust there. If you're talking to a seller, you have no trust at all, and you ask them a question like that, they're just going to go, well, who the heck are you to tell me how I should be living my life? You can only do that once you build that trust and they really feel like you are doing this in their best interest, because you are, if you are a good salesperson. All right, number 5, this is so common with top closers. They do not buy in to the seller's story, okay? A lot of our sellers, they have this story in their head that they're telling themselves. They're in foreclosure, but they're just holding off until some magical person lends them the money to get out of it. Again, just like that reframe, that's a story that they're telling themselves. The market's going to continue to go up. And top closers just don't buy into that. They might say, oh, well, I'm better off just fixing it up and doing the repairs myself. I think I want to do that. All of the top closers, they don't buy into that. What they do is they understand the seller's problems that they're dealing with. They understand what they really want, and they help them get there quickly in a straight line. And so what happens a lot of times with these inexperienced closers, or I would say all of the bottom, 90%, is when the seller tells them something like, I really want to just fix it up and do the repairs myself. The salesperson at that point will just say, yep, okay, that makes sense. I don't know how to overcome that. You better off just doing that. Whereas a top closer will say, yeah, that's definitely an option on the table. Help me understand though, what's the main reason you are exploring this cash offer versus just doing the repairs, taking the 6 months to fix it up and then listing it on the market? Now the seller reverts to what the main reason that they're selling it cash is, and then you will be able to get them to sell themselves to you. And so they will not buy into any of their BS stories. Another story is, hey, I do need to go run this by an attorney. I need to go run this by a realtor. That's just a story that the seller's telling themselves. But ultimately, that story doesn't help them get to their end result, because what's a realtor going to do? They're going to say, hey, don't work with those guys. You should just list it. In reality, they might not be better off listing it. And so they're going to go tell themselves that story that's going to put them in a worse position. When a top closer recognizes that they can help a seller, they're not going to buy into it. They're going to get the seller to focus on what's important to them, and they're going to push through to actually close that deal. And the last thing that top closers master is they are able to consistently uncover objections. And so all objections typically start with some sort of smokescreen. And so what I mean by that is they typically start with, I need to talk to my partner. I need to think about it. I'm not really sure about this. I need to run it by an attorney. But the top closers master getting to the real objection, what the real thing is that's holding them back. And so I'll give you an example based on an attorney. I've had some guys come to me and they're like, hey, I keep getting, I need to talk to an attorney. And so we break it down. First thing we'll do is we'll go through the agreement with them. If they still hit us with that objection at the end, we'll say, hey, look, certainly not a problem that you need to go talk to your attorney. Just so I know, what about what we went over? What about the purchase agreement that you want to run by? Seller then says, oh, you know what? I want to run it by everything just so I make sure that I'm getting the best deal. Then they'll put that objection aside. They'll say something along the lines of, okay, so it sounds like it's not really about the agreement. It sounds like it's about something else. So what is it? And then they will tell you what the real objection is. Well, I just want to make sure that I have enough money to accomplish A, B, and C. Once you understand that, that's just a logistical problem where you go, okay, well, how much do you need? What does that next step of your life look like? And can we help you do that? If we can, perfect, we can move forward. If not, we're going to have to do some more work. That's just one example with an attorney. Another example is the seller just hits you with, you know what? This is a lot. I really just need a couple days to think about it. Now, what the bottom percentage of closers will do is just say, okay, got it. When should we follow up with you? Because they have no idea how to overcome that objection. What top closers will do is they'll say, hey, look, that's certainly not a problem that you need to think about it. It's a big decision. Just so I know when's a good time on our calendar to reconnect. That way you're not chasing me down and vice versa. Seller books a time. All of that resistance goes away. And they say, hey, before I go, when you are running this through your mind between today and tomorrow, what questions are you going to be going over? Just so I can be better prepared for that next call. Seller now tells you the real objection. Now, obviously, the top closers know how to overcome those objections. And if you want to learn how to master those objections, we have an entire school community where we go over role plays every single week. I have my entire objection handling framework, how to overcome, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my partner, how to overcome a money objection, time frame objection, logistics, and fear, all of the main objections. And we also have advanced training. If you are running a team or you're doing consistently over a deal a month, we have sales calls every single day where we break down every single part of the process from the connection phase, the active listening, the verbal cues. We work on objection handling. We work on how to get that emotional impact. And this is how we've been able to consistently help our teams double their close rate. So I will put both links in the description below, and I will see you guys on the next video. Bye, everybody.